this week we're looking at oil slicks, and I have to say it takes a lot of layers to get this final result. The reason for that is there's a lot of depth to oil. It's not just on the surface or in the water, it's a combination of both. The thing I love about oil slicks is that really distinctive iridescent sheen you get on the surface. It has a marbled look to it, but it's really hard to capture in model form. So I went and built up my diorama. Basically, bit of tile grout, bit of salad grass. There's a video on that. Go look at it and come back to me when you've finished. Okay, so how do we make this look a little better? Well, first up, I've got an iridescent ink. Now, I tried loads of things and I found most iridescent paints, the granules were too large. If you try metallic paint, again, the granules were too large. You could just see them. And they give a lovely metallic sheen like you might get on a car, but you can see that they've definitely got granules in them. And what I'm looking for is that iridescence that you get with oil slick. So just using a business card as a mixing palette, what I've got here are a series of the clear Tamiya colours. So these Tamiya Clear Paints on their own would give a nice effect, but it'd be a coloured effect, and I'm after an iridescent effect. So I'm just going to put a drop of this iridescent ink into each of them, which is why I've got all these cocktail sticks. Doesn't need a lot, and yeah, I shook it when it was open. So just mix it in, and you get a nice bit more of a sheen to them. So what I'm going to do first is actually start with the red, which is on my brush, and I'm just going to literally put it on as the starting colour, and I want it to come out in similar lines to the way these have come out here. So you can see it going through this pond. Put that in some water, I think, to get rid of it. Then I'm going to take the blue one and I'm going to swirl it. Now, what I'm after is not a huge amount of colour, but a lot of just that sort of shape that you get when you get marbling all the way through. It looks a bit much at the moment, so what I go on and I do now is I just want something to make the whole lot just float a little bit. So around the edges I'm just going to put a bit of, this is Vallejo, just normal gloss varnish really. Okay, so now I've got my playthings on there, so I just need to get, I'm going to get a fresh cocktail stick, just need to swirl everything through. Okay, before it gets to anything, I'm just going to leave that now to sit until it dries. Well, doesn't it look awful when it's set? Don't worry, this isn't the final coat. This is not what you're left with. So what we've got here is a very odd looking surface if you look at it from the side and let the light shine on it. And that's because I've squiggled it with a cocktail stick and have blobbed stuff on. So what I've done is I've mixed some magic water, epoxy resin. Now, I like magic water. It takes a while to set, but it does eventually set, and it's quite rubbery. As you can see, it's crept all the way through here, which I wasn't expecting that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to colour this with a bit of the smoke that we put on first, because this is just a bit manky. It just doesn't look right, so I need to tone it down now. It's almost like the undercolour. Okay, now I've put about 30 plus drops of smoke in. Normally you only put a couple of drops in and it's fine from Tamiya. Because that's a transparent, and it's only going to be a thin layer, it's not really working for me. So what I've got now is this sort of fairly thick, it does colour my stick now when I bring it out. I'm just going to pour it over the top a little. I'm hoping it doesn't wick away like it did last time, because that was a bit of a problem. So here we go. Just going to tip it round. let it run in. Okay, so this is the first layer really. This is almost like the float. If you've ever done marbling, you have a bit of water that you float things on. This is really the float. So give it the good old breath. And the bubbles are gone. Now it's still not quite right, is it? You look at that, that doesn't make you feel like an oil slick. So we just now need to float a little bit more of this in. So that was 30 drops. And what I'm looking for really is a nice thick amount coming out from here. And I need a little bit more in, so I'm going to put a black drop in. Now this is black, it's just black, Tamiya. That top wasn't very much, I'll have to check before I shook. So I'm going to put about 1-2 drops maybe, because it's much thicker than the smoke. So I had about 30 drops of smoke and 2 drops of this, just to show you the difference the translucent makes. And now I've got this very, very sort of thick, much darker thing. And my problem with epoxy resin is you can't always tell where it's going to go and where it's going to move. So sometimes I wait a little bit before putting it on. But there we go. What I'm probably going to do is come back and check that it looks all right. And I've got plenty of spare resin to do that. So now I've got some black going in, okay? And I'm just covering up my colour. But it still hasn't got the iridescent sheen that we want. And it doesn't work because it's an acrylic. So what you need to do is add your iridescent ink, which, yeah, the lid's on. I shook it yesterday without the lid on properly. That was fascinating as it went everywhere. So I'm going to put 3 or 4 drops of this in, maybe a bit more actually. There's still quite a bit of resin, so big splurge in. Just to give it a little bit of something exciting to it. And this is resin and this is liquid, so they don't always mix together very well. And you end up with this really odd looking concoction. So we're beginning to get there, but it's all just blended in again. So now I've left it till it's a bit thicker and then it doesn't blend. Now the problem at this point is the bubbles don't come out in the same way. So you can end up, if you're not careful, with just a little bit of a bubble problem. So let's try and avoid that. So I dribbled this much thicker resin in, and then I've got a cocktail stick and I use it to put it back inside the barrel and to just swirl it through in a lovely sort of swirly motion through the rest of the clearer resin so that the two mingled but didn't merge. Okay, so it's a week later and this is set nicely, which is good. And what I'm going to do now is just, I need to get that iridescent sheen and it's not there yet. This is what it looks like if you just put it on the surface. You get this kind of, it's almost a matte. It is iridescent, but it doesn't have that sort of swirl I'd expect. And because it's water-based, it just doesn't sit very well. So I'm going to start with a small brush, just a normal brush, and see where we go. Now the trick is to get it just to swirl in a typically oily manner. It's not going to fill the whole of the it's not going to fill the whole of the pond. You want it to be very, very fine, but still showing up. I moved on from the small brush to a cocktail stick because it gives an even finer line. So now we have our iridescence more or less dry. It's just matte. It's not very good, is it? Matte iridescence. So the trick is to put a varnish over the top. Now this is Tamiya Clear. The Vallejo Clear cracks as it dries. It doesn't give a lovely smooth finish. So don't use that. But the other thing I'm going to do, because this is a very kind of pond, is I'm going to use some Woodland Scenics Fine Turf in burnt grass and yellow grass, just to put some manky little pond scum type effect in the corner. So I'm just going to, well, literally get a bit out of a spoon and just, because this is now dry, I'm just going to push it around with a Oops, probably enough. Push it around with my brush till it looks good. So basically sprinkled them on, spread them around with a brush, made sure I cleared out the centre so it was clear of any muck and used my finger. Then I put Tamiya Clear varnish in the middle, but it won't go into that flock and turf, it's too fine. So I sprayed it with isopropyl alcohol, 30% isopropyl alcohol, 70% water, and then used Vallejo gloss varnish, which will penetrate a lot better than the Tamiya. It's a little bit thinner. And then I just left it all to set and merge into itself. Right, it's all dried, looking good. It's got loads of little bitty scummy bits looking in it, and you do get an iridescent shine if you look at it. It's not quite perhaps how you'd get it with oil on a surface, but if anyone knows a better way, then do tell me. I've tried multiple ones, but this way you do at least get that feeling of iridescence. Okay, we're on the home stretch now. So the last thing to do is just to sort out these barrels. They're looking a little bit less weathered than perhaps they should do. The white on this one is especially bad. So what I normally do for red things that I want to weather is I've got this, it's a tinted P6 tint pastel. Basically it's a pale red. And I get my X-Acto knife and I just scrape a little bit off like that. Doesn't need a lot. And that's just a lovely then powdered pigment really, and I just take a brush and I can use it just to weather this down a bit, because these generally would just go a little bit paler. They get that sort of pale hue that anything red gets when it's weathered, and I've left this to the end because we'll be spraying water and things, and it's not too great, so just needs to go round and gunk things up. So I'm getting some MIG Vietnam Earth PO31, which is a MIG pigment and it's a brown, and you can't go wrong with a bit of a brown. It's to sort of emulate the rust a little bit, so I'm just going to put that in a few places. Bring it in. Okay, they look a lot better. The only thing I will say now is when I look at the top of my two barrels here, it looks a bit nice. So I'm just going to put my final drip of, this is the ink on, just to let them look a little bit less nice. And just to give a bit of a feel in that one, I might put a little bit on there as well, because the water would be sitting in it still if it's that full in the other barrels. So there we go. Just going to let that dry off and we'll take the final photos. So this is the final result. You can see, if you hold it to the light and wiggle it, you can actually see the iridescence if you get it at the right angle. You can see there's depth, there's some different colours in there, there's some darkness. You can see it's a pretty manky little pond really. So yeah, top tip, do your static grass after you've done your pond.
This week on the adventures of the mini Cathys, Nil Scale Cathy has a rather sticky moment.
Oh, well, it looks like an oil slick. What can you say, really? I wouldn't go swimming in it. Might need your stomach pumped. I mean, yeah, I know it's solid anyway, because it's like resin, but I wouldn't go swimming in it, no. Not in a real fake way, no. Okay, oil slick. Yeah, that one's done. Not much of an adventure, really. What Milk Cathy will be up to with it? Oh, Milk Cathy, what did you do? Oh, you look just like one of those ducks that comes out on oil spill and you see on TV, or seagulls or whatever, and they're busy washing them off and they're scrubbing them with detergent. No, I'm not going to scrub you. Yeah, I'd go take a bath if I were you. You do look a little bit, yeah, very black and not nice. Okay, well, see you later. I'll leave her to it.
Your Mill Scale Kathy be able to get rid of the oil tuning from that next month.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. If you did, subscribe to me on YouTube or on my website, kathymillett.co.uk. Alternatively, like me on Facebook, Kathy Millett Modelling. See you next week.